Hi Year 6! Yesterday in maths we had a look at multiplying fractions by fractions and fractions by whole numbers. But today we're going to be looking at dividing fractions by whole numbers.
Let's start by recapping the vocabulary we used yesterday. Have a look at these words and remind yourself what they mean. Yesterday we looked at fractions times fractions and fractions times whole numbers. Can you remember the rules? Well done if you remembered that when you times a fraction by another fraction you do numerator times numerator, then denominator times denominator. Here 1/2 times 1/4 we do 1 times 1, which is 1, and 2 times 4, which is 8, so we get 1/8. And for a fraction times an integer, we do numerator times integer, but we leave the denominator the same. So for 2/4 times 3, we do 2 times 3, which is 6, and keep the 4 the same. And we can change this to a mixed number of 1 and 2/4, or even better, 1 and 1/2. Yesterday we looked at multiplying fractions, but today we're going to be looking at dividing fractions by whole numbers. So here we've got 3/4 divided by 3. And we can pretend that this is 3/4 of a pizza that's left over, and we need to split this between 3 people. So each person would get 1/4, because we've split those 3/4 into 3. Here, because our numerator is a multiple of our divisor, we can easily do 3 divided by 3, which makes 1/4. However, this is not always the case, and like yesterday, there are rules for dividing a fraction by a whole number. If we times the denominator by the whole number and keep the numerator the same, we get 3/12. And this can be simplified to 1/4, which is the same answer. Here's another way to look at 3/4 split between 3. We know that each person would get 1/4. So here we have 6/8 divided by 3. Let's pretend that we have 6/8 of a chocolate bar left over, and we want to split this equally between our 3 friends. So, if we split the 6 between 3, each friend is going to get 2/8 each, because 2/8 add 2/8 add 2/8 is 6/8, and this can be simplified to 1/4. We were able to do it this way because our numerator was a multiple of our divisor. However, if it wasn't, we'd need to follow the other method. We keep the numerator the same, and we times the divisor by the whole number, which would be 24. Then we simplify 6 over 24, which again is 1/4. Here is an example where the numerator is not a multiple of the divisor, so we need to follow our rule. Pause the video and have a go. So we keep our numerator the same as 3, and then we need to times our denominator by our integer. This is kind of like the opposite of timesing a fraction by a whole number, because the numerator stays the same instead of the denominator. 10 times 7 is 70, so well done if you got 3/70. So here we have a challenge. If we have a mixed number divided by an integer, we need to change that mixed number into improper fraction. So here we know we've got 2 lots of 6/6 and 3/6. So 2 lots of 6 is 12, and add on 3 is 15. Now we've got 15 over 6, see if you can do the division. Here, because our numerator is a multiple of our divisor, we know that 15 divided by 5 is going to be 3, and 3/6 is equivalent to a half. Following our rule, we get the same answer, because 6 times 5 is 30, keeping the 15 the same. This is simplified to 1/2. So well done if you got 1/2. When your numerator is not a multiple of your divisor, you need to remember the rule for dividing a fraction by a whole number, and the rule is the numerator stays the same, but you multiply the denominator by the integer. So 1/2 divided by 2, the 1 stays the same, 2 times 2 is 4, you would get 1/4. The rules for timesing and dividing fractions by integers are quite similar, so there is a way to help you remember which is which. So when you're dividing a fraction by an integer, you can use alliteration to help you. Denominator, divide. You can remember divide times the denominator. But when you're multiplying a fraction by an integer, you might remember that the n for numerator looks a bit like an m for multiplication, so you're multiplying the numerator, not the denominator. Hopefully this helps you remember the rules. Well done Year 6, hopefully you're feeling a bit more confident with the rules for multiplying and dividing fractions. Make sure you check out the work and videos on the website to practice your skills.